Do you know what is the difference between controlled and uncontrolled components? So friends, if you are going to give any type of interview inside React programming, so this is the favorite question of any interviewer that is going to ask from you. So inside this video topic, we'll understand the complete idea, complete concept that what is the difference between controlled and uncontrolled components. So first thing first, I'll start from very basic definition, from very basic understanding. So a controlled component is a form element like input element, text area or select or any type of form element whose value is going to controlled by React state. But whereas an uncontrolled component is a form element that manages its own state internally and you can access its value using reference. Now, from this very basic difference, we can understand that if we are going to manage the controlled components of form elements, it means we have to use a hook of React that is called useState. Because in terms of controlled components, the form elements were the values which we can control by React state. But whereas if we're talking about uncontrolled components, so it means that the form elements where the values can be managed by using a React hook called useRef. So now to see some practical demonstrations, let's jump to our VS Code to see the difference between this controlled component and uncontrolled component. So here I am inside a VS Code and inside left hand side you can see a React application which has been installed using create React app command. So it's very simple. I'll simply go to this src folder. Let's open the default component what basically this application provided, that is app.js. And one more thing, for example, if you are using something called the React application installed using Vite, so in that case, what you have to do, you have to just go into src folder and open app.jsx file. And all those things what we'll see you have to do inside this app.jsx component. So now let's move to our first startup, that is inside app.js. So first I will discuss about controlled components. So as we discussed from theoretically that controlled components are those form elements where the values can be managed by React state, and for that we have to use called use state. So what I will do first, I will go and remove all these things from here and let's create a p tag. And inside this p tag, I'll create a label tag. And for example, let's say enter name. And then after, let's create the input element. And it is a type of text. So it will be text. And here, the value we have to manage using use state. So for that, let's import first. Import. It will come from React. And this is called use state. And then after, let's copy this hook. Then here, let's say const name set name equals to use state, and initially I want an empty value. And then after, into this input element, let's add a value attribute, and inside this value I will pass this name and what I want. So whenever if I type anything inside this input element, simply I want that that value will be updated to this state variable by using this state variable manager called setName. So here for this, let's add on change event, and inside here, let's pass the event element set name, and inside this set name, that is e.target.value. Now, if I save these changes, let's go back to project terminal, and if I run npm run start, and successfully, now we can see our input element, that is enter name, and here we have to pass the value. So I can pass any value into it. Now, what basically I want, so whenever if I type anything for the time being, let's go and console this value into console log. So if I go here, we don't see anything. Let's go back to VS Code. And here, what I will do, let's say const handle submit equals to, I'll create first a function. And inside this function, let's say console.log and print that value. Now, if I save these changes and here, let's create a button. So for that, I will create a different p tag. Let's say button. And inside this button, let's add on submit event. And here, I will pass that function called handle submit. And one more thing, as we are using on submit event handler to this button, so these two elements must be inside a form tag. Otherwise, we can use something called on click. If I save these changes, let's go back to browser. Now, if I click on the submit button, and now we can see that this is the name state variable which holds the value of this input element. Now, from very basic definition, if we compare this practical example, so we can see that this input element, its value is going to control by this state variable. And now let's understand the concept of uncontrolled components. So for this, let's consider our second setup, which has been installed using Vite. So inside this, what I will do, first I will remove all these things, or before that, if I go to my project terminal, let's stop this development server, and if I go one folder back, and this is my app 2, and inside this, if I first start development server, so it will be npm run dev, hit enter, and now as we can see, it has started. Let's open. So this is the default landing page whenever if you install any React application using Vite. Now let's go back to VS Code. Now here I'll go and remove this div tag from here, and then after we are looking for uncontrolled components, and as I told, uncontrolled components are controlled by reference of that element. So it means we have to use a hook of React that is called useRef. So now let's take a very basic example what we had seen for control components. So I will create a p tag, and then after let's pass label tag and with the same keyword called enter name, and here let's say input type equals to text. So for uncontrolled components, we have to use the concept of reference. So we don't need this use state line. Let's remove it. Let's remove all these things. In fact, this app.css. Now in this case, let's import useRef, and it comes from React. And then after here, let's say const name reference equals to useRef. Now then after, let's copy this name reference variable, and here I'll use a ref keyword, ref attribute, and simply pass this name ref. Now after passing any value, after typing any value to this input type text, if I want to get that value, we can use this name reference. So how to get? So for example, on type I want to print that value what we have typed in into this text box into console.log. So inside this on change, let's pass an event called handle on change. Now let's copy this event name, then here let's say const handle on change, and I want to get whenever the user types in the value into this input type text box, I want to simply print into console. So here let's say console.log, and this is uncontrolled components, so I have to use call name reference dot current dot value. Now by the help of this line, like name reference dot current dot value, we can get the value of this uncontrolled element. So if I save these changes, let's go back to browser, and here go to console, let's pass any value. And now we can see that inside this console.log, inside this console tab, here is the value what the user types in into this. So from the very basic examples of controlled components and uncontrolled components, now we can see the difference by using useState hook and useRef hook. Let's go back to VS Code. So in case of uncontrolled components, the value is going to manage itself by element, and we can get access over the value by using a hook called useRef. Now, this reference simply points to the DOM element of that component. Now, here, if you're talking about this controlled component, so controlled components, the value is going to manage by React state, and for that we have to use called useState hook.